Hello, beauties. Welcome to Mom's Unboxed, a podcast where I unbox with you the how-tos, tips, and tricks to empower women to upgrade relationships, intimacy, and parenting. I'm your host, Melanie Caroline, a multi-dimensional woman, life coach, lover, and mom who's made a lot of fucking mistakes. If you want to live a sensual and liberated life, you've come to the right space. Don't forget to follow Mom's Unboxed because you don't want to miss an episode. Hello, beautiful people. How y'all doing today? Let me know at I am Melanie Caroline. Today we're going to be unboxing mom guilt. This is such a hot topic. I don't know a single mama out there who's not experienced some type of mom guilt throughout their parenting journey. Whether you're feeling guilty about going on a date with your partner, yelling at your child, feeling guilty about time that you're missing with your child because you're working on your career, or maybe you're feeling guilty because you're sending your kid to go see their dad and you know it has some effects. There are so many different ways in which we feel mom guilt, and I just want to unbox this topic a little bit, hopefully give you another perspective to think about when it comes to guilt. We're going to talk a little bit about shame and the differences between shame and guilt. And then I'm going to give you some tips to help you release the guilt and give you a way to shift your mind so that you can see things to be more positive when you're advocating for yourself and you're doing the things that you want to do for you. Let's start with what Brené Brown says in her book, Atlas of the Heart. Guilt is focused on behavior. Guilt is the discomfort we feel when we evaluate what we've done or failed to do against our own values. She goes on to say that guilt can drive positive change in behavior. Now, you might be really confused of, well, how is my feeling guilty going to help me shift my behavior? And we'll get to that. So hang tight. Let's talk about a common example of mom guilt is when we snap at our child, when we're yelling at them, when we've lost our patience. Where does this come from? Why do we snap at our children? My experience from talking to moms and even my own personal experience, when we are feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, impatient, that is when we are more likely to be snappy at our children. It is a cause, it is a result of us feeling dysregulated emotionally and overstimulated. And when we reach this point, right, when we get to a level, we lose our patience and we start yelling and snapping and, engaging in argument. And that makes us feel guilty. We feel badly for our behavior. Yet what happens is that we apologize to our children, but then the next day, the same thing happens. We continue this cycle of I apologize and then mom snaps again, I apologize and then snaps again. And then that cycle continues, which feeds into our guilt. We feel super badly about how we're behaving and how we're modeling ourselves. And so when we are in this cycle of overwhelmed, we're frustrated, we're anxious, we're tired, we're feeling impatient, and we're modeling is our ability to have balance and be centered. And when we're yelling and snapping, we're not balanced. We're not showing equilibrium. We're not showing how to best process emotions. That's another thing that feeds into the guilt is our lack of our inability to process emotions in a healthy way. And so when we're yelling, it's a symptom of the experience that we're having internally. So let me say that one more time. Yelling, snapping is an experience. It is a symptom of what is occurring internally. And when we're in burnout, exhaustion, we lack of grace, a lack of compassion for ourselves and our children. So when your child knocks over his cereal bowl, your first automatic reaction is going to be to snap and yell. When really, if we were emotionally regulated, if we were balanced, if we were feeling refreshed, we would be like, oh, it's okay, let's just clean that up. Accidents happen. But most of the time, what happens is you're thinking, oh, that's another thing I have to clean up now. That's another thing I have to do now. Why would you do that? Blah, 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 blah. You start spitting words and then you feel guilt. And so one of the antidotes of being able to release guilt is stopping the behavior. Stop yelling, stop snapping. Well, easier said than done, right? Like, that's not a realistic expectation. It's just one day we're going to wake up and we're going to stop yelling at our kid. But you know what is a realistic expectation? Is you shifting the behavior and doing the number one thing that will help with that. And that is taking time for you. Taking time for your self-care, recognizing when you're going into overwhelm, when you're going into a state of being impatient or frustrated. You become aware of the emotions that are arising prior to you yelling and snapping and being impatient. So when we take the time for self-care, even if it's 15 minutes, to go in your room and hang out, just take some time for you to regulate, to breathe. Doing that 15 minutes each day will actually help you become more aware of your internal state. As a mom, we are incredibly busy. We're going grocery shopping. We're doing the laundry. We're picking up the kids. We're driving them to sports. And doing all the things means that we're constantly in doing mode. We continue to go, 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 and we stop paying attention to our bodies. We stop paying attention to our mental state. Sometimes we'll go all day without even eating. And then we recognize, oh shit, I haven't really drank much water today either. And when we stop taking care of ourselves, we stop recognizing what is happening to our internal body. That's when the emotions rise, and you don't even feel the emotions until it's there. It's like that. Snap. Oh shit, I'm yelling at my kid. I'm so sorry. You feel guilty. But when you take that time for you without the guilt, and we'll talk about self-care and guilt in a minute, but take that time for you without the guilt and just do some breathing. Lay there. Just put your hands on your stomach and feel the rise and fall as you breathe. Don't take this 15 minutes to watch something or be on your phone, because your brain is still stimulated and it's still distracted with things. Take 15 minutes each day to actually pay attention to yourself. Watch yourself like you're watching a movie. I'm the main actress in my own life, so pay attention to her like one. Watch her like you would a movie. Be aware of the internal states. What's going on? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you frustrated? Are you overwhelmed? When you take this 15 minutes each day to be more aware of yourself and just cool down, you'll feel the difference. You will. And of course, the more time you do this throughout the day, it even has even more benefits, or you see the benefits even more quickly, because you're now tuning into yourself. And so what's the benefit to this when you are in that state, right? So you're going throughout your day, it's dinner time, the kids aren't listening, you have to remind them over and over and over again to wash their hands and get ready for dinner. And you start feeling that rise of frustration, right? So here's what you do. You're like, oh, I feel that I'm becoming frustrated with them not listening. Let me pause for a second and walk to the kids and say, Mom is getting frustrated right now because I feel like I'm having to repeat myself over and over again for you guys to wash your hands. Can you please wash your hands so that we can continue the evening in peace? Or so Mom doesn't get frustrated? You approach things like that instead of just snapping and yelling, hurry up and get ready for dinner. I told you to wash your hands 1,000,000 times. Let's go. It's so easy to go to that state, but when we become aware of the state prior to the symptom, we don't have to be symptomatic. We can stop it before the behavior happens, which, guess what? that relieves some guilt because it's changed behavior. You're changing the behavior when you're not snapping, when you're not yelling at your children. Prior to my moving in with my current partner, my marital home, there was a lot of yelling, and it suffocated me. It felt so uncomfortable, and there was a time in my life where I really yell at my son. I was just so done with everything. And so now in this home, there's a no yelling rule. Like, absolutely not. It's not an option. There is no yelling in this house. And I have to catch myself, like, the pot is boiling, and I can feel that, and I have to walk away. I just have to say, we'll continue this conversation later. Mom needs a timeout. And I'm totally okay with saying Mom needs a timeout. I will put myself in my room. I certainly will. Mom needs a timeout. I'm going to take 5 minutes. And that's okay. I don't feel guilt over that. I'm not yelling. I'm not snapping. And my kids are being shown that it's okay to continue conversation later when there's a little bit more peace and when there's a little bit more equilibrium, and we're able to talk to each other in a healthy way. And that to me matters more than anything. I want to show my kids how to communicate. And sometimes it means taking a pause and regrounding your emotions and becoming more regulated. So if you can resonate with any of this, let me know. I would love to hear your story. Or maybe you're like, yeah, I've tried this and it's not working. There's so many different scenarios. It's not going to be a one solution fits all. But I am saying that I know the effects firsthand when you take time for yourself. And I believe in this power so much. Yes, this does work. I'm telling you what, I know that you spend more than 15 minutes on your phone each day, scrolling through social media. Put it down. Take time to breathe. Pay attention to your body. It's a fucking miracle worker. It really is. The miracle is that when you do start taking care of yourself and you put your self-care first, you're able to feel more regulated. And there's so much mom guilt over self-care. I read one comment where one mama went to get her toes done, and she felt so bad that she picked up her kids and went and took them to buy a toy because she spent money on herself. She felt like she had to spend money on the kids. I struggle with this because I don't agree that just because you take care of yourself and you buy something for yourself that you have to buy something for your children. Your children aren't gonna, they're not with you having a pedicure. So if you just, drop them off at school, go and take yourself out for a nice little coffee, and you go get yourself a pedicure or a manicure, they're not going to know. They're going to say, Mom, your nails look so pretty. They're going to be like, hell yeah, Mom has great nails. My kids I have no remorse over getting my nails done. I love getting my nails done. I don't need to get my toes done, but I do love to get my nails done. And that's an important part of my self-care. But my kids love looking at my nails. They're like, Mom, you have such pretty nails. They're not saying, Mom, why didn't you take me out to go buy something? Because if you do start that pattern of, okay, I'm going to get my toes done, which means I'm going to have to go pick up my kids and get them something, that's going to create a pattern of, oh, Mom gets her nails done, so we get to go buy a toy today. And then it becomes an expectation, right? So you think you're trying to prevent hurt feelings, but what you're really doing is creating a pattern of this expectation that, well, now Mom got a coffee, I have to get a coffee. That's not how it works. At least it shouldn't work like that. And if it does work for you, then that's great. But here's another, you indulge in your self-care because it makes you a better mom, because it creates more patience, more space, more time within yourself so that you're more attentive to your kids when you are with them. So you take that time for yourself, and there's so many other benefits. They're going to say, yeah, Mom played with me today. She was off her phone today. She was attentive. We had a good time. Those are the memories that they're going to remember. They're going to remember, Mom took us to the park. Mom did a craft with us. Mom did Legos with us. Mom played a game with us. She wasn't yelling. She seemed happy today. She wasn't so focused on the dishes and trying to clean the house because she was okay with it because she had a whole hour of self-care today doing journaling and meditating and going to get nails done. She bought herself a coffee. She's feeling good. She's feeling happy. That's what the kids notice, is how you're feeling, what you're going through emotionally. My babies can always tell when I'm getting anxious or overwhelmed or I haven't had a break. And even my partner, he'll be like, did you meditate today? When was the last time you meditated? They know when I'm not taking my self-care time. They know when I'm working too much. They know when I'm doing more chores than I need to be, or when I'm running around. They notice how you feel and how you're doing emotionally more than you didn't take me out to go get this treat, or you didn't buy me a coffee. It's okay not to do something for your kids all the time just because you do it for yourself. You have to practice this. And it took me a long time to be like, no, I think mom's going to get something this time. Maybe next time you guys can get something. And they're okay. Guess what? Ask the coffee shop for a lollipop. I've seen so many coffee shops that, they hand out the little lollipops and they're happy with that. And even then, it's okay. They're used to it now. Okay, Mom, no problem. Because they know that there is a next time. Doesn't have to be every time, but it can be a next time. When you take care of yourself and you do something for you can release that guilt. Snapping, we're not yelling, we're not being impatient because you have found a way to fill your own containers. And when our containers are filled, we can pour into others. We can pour into the people we love, specifically our children. When you take the time for yourself is when you become more aware of the self. And that's when you can feel the emotions rising, and that's when you can pause and say, wait, let me respond differently this time. Viktor Frankl has a great quote, between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies your growth and your freedom. When I first read this quote, it fucking hit home. I was going through a really shitty time. I was always snapping at my kids. I wasn't affectionate. I was in a poor place, a really bad place. And I had so much guilt. I felt so much shame. And I read this quote and I was like, holy fuck. The more I become of myself and I feel the energy bubbling up, the emotions bubbling up, I can pause and choose differently. And sometimes that just meant, yep, Mom's going in a timeout now, because I didn't know how to express how I was feeling. In those times that I was like in timeout, I figured out how to express how I was feeling. Because I wasn't angry. It sure was coming out in anger. But it was sadness. It was loneliness. It was desperation. There was other things going on. And it just was revealing itself in anger. And that's why I was snapping. That's why I was impatient. I literally decided to choose differently. And here's the thing about self-care too. When it comes to this space that we have to choose our response, that space gets bigger. It legit gets bigger. The emotion arises and then we pause. And that pause is like, holy crap. I need to do something else right now because I'm feeling very dysregulated. And that's when you choose. You get to decide what you're going to do. And once you shift that behavior, when you shift the symptom of the emotions that are happening internally, the guilt dissipates because you're not doing it anymore. You're not yelling anymore. You're not snapping anymore. And sure, you're going to have times where, we all have our bad days. We all make mistakes. But it's becoming fewer and fewer, right? And the children are going to remember that you communicated how you felt. I really hope that you're able to take 15 minutes each day to practice self-awareness so you can grow the space and choose how to respond. All right. So the other example I have is a deeper example, letting your child go to their baby daddy or their family, knowing that there is some repercussions. You see the effects on your child. They're coming home and you can tell they haven't slept. They've got the biggest eyeball circles you've ever seen. You can tell they haven't eaten right, or they haven't drank water because they're super thirsty for water. Their stomach hurts. You know, they just look like they are a zombie because they haven't slept all weekend. And this is a really hard thing to decide as a mom. Like, do I let them go see their father knowing that my child is going to be super dysregulated and in a funk when he returns home? Or do I prevent them from seeing their dad or their family? And I would say, I'm going to start this off with saying, if you have sole custody, you are their parent and you know what's best for your kids. If their safety is at risk, of course, you do what you need to do to keep your child safe. That is, like, first and foremost. But if you're in a situation where your child is safe, like, you know that nothing's going to happen to them, they're just not cared for the same way as they are when they're at home. Like, that's a different balance that we have to consider. We have to consider that. For instance, with my son, you know, he goes over to his dad. He didn't always go to his dad's because when he was younger, not having diapers changed and that sort of thing, like, was a boundary for me. And you will come up with your own boundaries, or you may already have your own boundaries where you're like, okay, I'll tolerate this, but I'm not going to tolerate that. Well, that was one of them. Like, I did not tolerate that type of care for my son. But now that he's older, you know, he's a young teenager now, like, he's able to communicate with me what's going on. If his, you know, dad was yelling at him or treating him unkind, like, he'd call me and I'd go pick him up. But if he's having a good time, but I know he's not sleeping, he's not doing his homework, and he's probably not eating right, yeah, I might feel guilty because I know those things do affect him. But what I would feel more guilty over is him not being able to build that relationship with his dad, or maybe in your case where your kids aren't able to build a relationship with their family because you don't want them to go over there because of the lack of care that they receive over at the house. As totally understandable if that is your boundary. But what I'm saying is, I would feel more guilty if my son grew up not liking me because I didn't let him see his dad. I didn't want to be the reason why he didn't see his dad. And that means more to me than, like, okay, he's not sleeping right. And I want my son to discover who he is with his own eyes, his own perceptions, his own views. And so I have to make the decision, like, okay, you know, I'm going to let you go see your dad. But here's the thing. When you come back, we're getting back on schedule. You're going to be eating right, going to bed on time, doing your homework. Here's another thing that I've decided. I will limit the amount of times that he goes to see his dad if I start seeing a large pattern of my son being really dysregulated when he comes home. So, 1 weekend a month, 2 weekends a month. Now, if you have a parenting plan, well, that's a whole nother ball game. That is, and I have sympathy for you, because if you have a parenting plan, you don't have a choice. You have to send your kids off, regardless of whether they want to go or not. Now, if they're older and they can express to their own parent that they don't want to go, then that's good. They're advocating for themselves. But if you're in that situation where you just don't have a choice, my heart goes out to you. Do your best to re-regulate your child when they come home. Talk to them about how you're feeling. Talk to them about how important it is to get sleep, to eat right, to drink water, so that they understand where you're coming from. So you can release that guilt. You know, you're not doing anything wrong. You're simply following the directions of the court. And it's important that you don't put all that weight on your own shoulders. You know, talk to them about how they're feeling. And if they're too young to talk to them about their feelings, then that's where you have to make a decision for yourself and not feel guilt for making a decision, because you've made that decision because you feel strongly about something. If you're making a decision for them not to see their family because you do fear their safety is at risk, or they're just too emotionally dysregulated when they come home, then that's okay. The other thing too is talk to the other parent. You have to co-parent. That's something I haven't done enough of. I don't talk to my baby's daddy about my son because he hasn't really been a part of his life, you know? And now that we're trying to build that relationship and that rapport, I am talking to my baby's daddy more. I do encourage you to communicate more with your baby's daddy so you can co-parent, so you can be on the same page. You might not always be on the same page, but at least you're communicating. We cannot feel guilty for other people's behaviors. We cannot take that on. That's not yours. Let it go. Put it down. You've done all that you can. You've communicated. You're following court orders. You're talking to your child. You're letting your child express themselves to you. There's nothing to feel guilty about there. If you have like a particular story and you want to break it down, DM me and we will break it down. So another example that I see of mom guilt is wanting to go out on dates, wanting to have a good time, go have a date with your girlfriend, go have a date with your partner, or just go on a date in general. I'm sure this has happened to someone, right? You're walking out the door and you say goodbye to your baby and they're like, Mom, why are you gone so much? And you just get automatically triggered. All the guilt fills in because you're going out, you're not spending time with your kid. I'm sure we can all agree that this has happened. Now here's the thing. Your child has a limited way of expressing themselves. So them saying, Mom, you're gone all the time, might be, Mom, I just want to hang out and spend time with you. In which case you could respond, if they actually said that, yeah, definitely, let's spend time together tomorrow. Also, children don't really have a construct of time. So they might see, oh, you're gone for work and now you're gone for a day. But they don't see the fact that you just spent all weekend with them because it's, been 3 days ago. Think about their perspective and where they're at mentally to be able to describe how they're really feeling. What we don't want is for us to feel guilty and then we go on this date and it's not as fun because now you're thinking about how badly you feel. You're feeling guilty. You're feeling remorse. You want to go out and have a good time and have a good date. So, explain to your kid, pending the age, of course, when I say explain to their kid, you're going to shift your explanation to fit how your child would understand. So if they're, 4, you're going to say, I look forward to going and hanging out with you tomorrow. I have a fun thing planned, or we're going to do an art project. I'll see you later, okay? Or if they're 13 and you're going on a date with your husband, the 13-year-old's going to understand, hey, in order for me and Dad to have a good, healthy, we have to go out and do our own thing. We have to be able to communicate and flirt, talk, and do things that are just, for us, the adults. They're going to understand that. But hey, is there something I can do? Is there something you're wanting to do? Ask them what is it that they're wanting, and what is the root cause of why they're saying what they're saying. So instead of carrying all this guilt, you're just being more curious. You're being curious about why they're making the comments. My daughter, this doesn't have anything to do with my dating, but I just want to mention it because I'm sure this has happened to several of you. We'll sit down and watch a movie, and I cannot for the life of me just sit and stare at a TV unless I'm really into that movie. It is so unlike me. I always want to be multitasking. So I want to color, I want to crochet. Sometimes I'm working on my phone. Lately I'm working on my phone a lot during movie time. And my daughter constantly comments about how I'm always on my phone. And at first I was snappy. I wasn't just explaining to her what I was doing. I was just in defense mode. And now when she says it, I will explain to her, yes, Mommy has to do some work, and it's just easier for Mom to do work while I'm watching the movie with you because I still get to enjoy your company. And now she'll say something like, we just watched the new Willy Wonka movie, which was way different from the original, might I add. But she mentioned it to me, and I just kind of gave her a look, and she goes, I know, Mom. Like, she already knows because I've explained this to her. Because now I don't feel guilty. I provide clarity. And so when you are going out on a date, maybe you're going out on a couple of dates a month because you're dating. You want to get to know people. This is your adult interaction time. And you can explain to your kids your thinking behind why you're going on a date. Well, like, why are you going on a date? Well, you're going on dates outside the home because you care about the safety of your children. You want to get to know somebody before you bring them around them. If you explain that, oh, I'm trying to get to know people because I care about your safety. I want to make sure this person is kind, that he's caring, that he's respectful. Your child's going to appreciate that so much more. They're going to remember that so much than they are going to remember you just going out on the date and them feeling lonely. Like, they're not going to remember that. They're going to remember how you were advocating for them, that you were ensuring their safety. So explaining that relieves the guilt. It's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about it. I find that we feel guilt when we're not explaining ourselves, when we're not expressing the why behind why we're doing something. And when we don't communicate and it just kind of all bottles up, and then you feel guilty, like, oh, they're lonely, they don't want me to go out, maybe I shouldn't go out tonight. As soon as you leave that door, they're going to be so distracted with something else. They're going to get on their game, they're going to eat some food, they're going to go to bed, and then you're going to see them the next morning and all is well. All is well. You didn't need to be feeling guilty at all. You know you got things planned for them. Because when you spend time with them and you're mindful of the time and you're being attentive to them, that's what they're going to remember. And here's the final example that I want to give that I read a lot about, is losing time with your kids due to a toxic relationship, addiction, or even building a career. You know, let's say you are an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, you know that starting a business is going to have some real long hours, going to be odd hours, you're going to be fitting things in here and there, you know that you're losing time with your kids. You know, let's say even just if I recorded a podcast at night and I was working in a studio and I missed a kid's bedtime, I feel guilty. I think missing out on bedtime and tucking our kids in is like, it hits home for moms. I don't know what it is about it, but it's like I missed so many fucking bedtimes because I was in a toxic relationship. I was staying the night at this person's house because I felt like I needed to be there more than I needed to be for my kids. And looking back now, I'm like, why the fuck? Why the fuck? And you might have those moments as well. Like, you reflect back and you're like, why did I do that? I don't even understand. This is where we have to be okay with understanding, wait, how many bedtimes do I get? 365 nights. If I'm missing a few a month, it's going to be okay, because your children are going to remember all the times you did put them to bed, then they are going to remember not putting them to bed. If you did go for a long period of time without being able to tuck your kids into bed, I'm sorry. And that must hurt. I was there as well. It doesn't matter the why. It matters that it happened. But what matters even more is that you're here now. You're tucking them into bed. You're kissing them goodnight. And they see you in the morning. It's such a beautiful thing in our life when we make a change and be able to live in alignment with the person that we are now and the person that we want to be. The guilt comes in when we focus so much on the past. So if you are an entrepreneur, or you had an addiction, or you were in a toxic relationship and you missed so much time, the guilt is because we are reflecting on the past. We are not focusing on the present and what we are doing as a mom in the here and now. We talk about guilt being based upon the behavior. Shame is focusing on the self, not the behavior. It's feeling flawed. It's feeling of no value, of no worth. It's telling yourself you're a shitty mom for the time that you missed with your kid. When you reflect back on the past and you feel like a shitty mom, that's not guilt anymore, that's shame. because the behavior in which caused the guilt is past. You're no longer doing it. It's that you can't seem to get over the person that you were then, and so you still shame yourself for the way that it affected your kids. We've got to be able to heal and release the shame and guilt so that we can live a liberated, sovereign life, loving ourselves, loving who we are as a mom, because that's what's going to affect the kids the most, is your happiness, your ability to feel joy and know your value as a woman, the person, as a mom. So if you have been in a situation where you just lost so much time with your children and it's time you cannot get back, you're not alone. I share this with you. I see you. I have sympathy, empathy, compassion for you. And though it is time you cannot regain, you have the time now. So please don't spend it beating yourself up for the shit you did in the past, because you're no longer that person anymore. You love that person. Send her compassion. Give her a hug. Have empathy for the person you used to be. But know that things have changed. You have the ability right now to spend with your children. Focus on that. Focus on the here and the now. And practice loving yourself through these processes. It's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You are learning to release guilt. That is not an easy thing to do. I'm here. Now, here are the antidotes to guilt: deep self-love, grace, compassion. In order to love yourself, you have to get to know yourself. That's why spending that 15 minutes a day, at least, getting to know yourself. You're not on your phone. You're not watching TV. Focusing on your breath. Focusing on your mental state. Focusing on where you are emotionally. This is what's going to deepen your self-love, is getting to know yourself. It's going to open up more space for you. You're going to gain more patience. You're going to gain clarity. You're going to gain balance, so you can conquer your day. You can conquer that mommy role. The other one is grace. Give yourself some grace. You are learning, you are shifting how to become emotionally stable. You're learning how to release guilt. That is not easy. Allow yourself time and flexibility. Be understanding of where you're at mentally, physically, and spiritually. Be gentle towards yourself, just like you would your kids. We give everybody else so much grace, including our kids, that we don't give it to ourselves enough. Compassion. When we feel compassion for another person, what are we doing? We're hugging them. We're telling them that it's okay. We're trying to soothe their suffering. So when we provide comfort for other people, it relieves that suffering for them. So we need to practice compassion with ourselves. Increasing our self-compassion increases that connection with the self. It improves the grace. We show ourselves we love ourselves by showing ourselves compassion and trying to relieve our own suffering. The other way is practicing self-care. I can't speak about self-care enough. There is no greater way to give back to yourself when you indulge in self-care practices. And self-care can look different on a different day. Let's say you're having a busier day than normal. You don't really have time to sit down for an hour, but you have 15 minutes. Somewhere in your day, there's got to be 15 minutes for yourself. Don't feel guilty for asking your partner, family, or friends to hang out with your kid for a little bit so that you can take time for yourself. Go on a nature walk. Take a bath. Go get yourself a coffee. Go get yourself a mani or a pedi. Sit down and meditate. Listen to a YouTube guided meditation. You know, there's a lot of things that you can find on YouTube, like breathing practices, meditations, guided meditations. There's so many things that you can do to really help you become more aware of yourself. And that really should be the intention of doing self-care, is not only are you trying to feel good, but you're also trying to find balance so that you can have more space within yourself to understand your emotions and feelings. This increases our emotional stability, our ability to communicate more effectively. Allow yourself to just pause. Give yourself permission. Increase your self-love and feel less guilt is celebrating yourself. Celebrate and acknowledge your accomplishments. Some of that guilt comes from you feel like you don't do enough. But when in fact, I know you're doing all kinds of shit all day long. You are knocking things out. You're either doing the laundry, you're doing the dishes, you're picking up your kids, but we don't seem to count all those things as accomplishments. Hello, I did so much this week. I'm going to take some time. Hey honey, can you watch the kids? I'm going to go out and do me for a little bit. That should be okay. We just see those things we need to check off the to-do list. But no, those are your achievements that day. Those are the things that you accomplished. And I bet when you start seeing all the things that you accomplish, you'll feel better about giving yourself some time for you. Because you're like, damn, I do work my butt off. Recognize and celebrate who you are, your progress, your achievements, and that is a deeper way of self-love. And plus, that brings people joy. When you recognize yourself, it brings joy. And this is coming from a person who really still struggles to recognize her accomplishments. Here are some tips. Do some breath work to reground. When you are taking that 15 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, do some breathing. Put your hand on your belly, put your hand on your chest, feel the rise and fall, and just reconnect with yourself, okay? When you are making a decision, just communicate to your children why you're making the decision that you're making. And your kids will respect you so much more for it. All right, mamas. That was the end of the episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please see my Instagram at I am Melanie Caroline. I'm going to be doing a breathwork meditation that you can do during this 15 minutes of self-care, gaining awareness of the self, the body, and your emotional state as well, so that you can create more space and be a more conscious mama. I love y'all. Tune in next Wednesday. Until the next time, sunshine. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of Moms Unboxed. If you have a topic or relationship question, connect with me at I am Melanie Caroline. And don't forget to follow Moms Unboxed. May you live a liberated, sensual, and unboxed life. I'll be chatting with you next Wednesday for another episode. Until the next time, sunshine.